Hello chess fans and welcome to a new video series. In this series, which I'm calling Every Chess Move Explained, we will look at some of the most famous games of all time and we will walk through every single chess move and try to explain that chess move. In this series, I'm really hoping to convey a bit of the narrative and story of a chess game and help you understand how masters weave together strategy and tactics and how they respond to their opponents and their ideas during a game. The first game we're going to look at is the famous opera game won by the American legend Paul Morphy back in 1858 against two amateur players. It's known as the opera game because it was in fact played at the Paris Opera. The game begins with Paul Morphy playing 1e4, an excellent opening move, the most popular first move. It lets out the bishop and the queen, and white is likely to be able to castle soon after e4. Black responds with e5, which is good for exactly the same reasons that e4 was good, and now white plays knight to f3, which gains a tempo, developing the piece and attacking the loose pawn on e5. Now, at this point, probably the best move is knight c6, which is very popular, developing a piece and defending a piece. In the opening, one of the keys to success is to achieve multiple things with every move you make, developing and attacking, developing and defending. Those are two of the most important strategies for you to incorporate in your play. So instead, the amateurs playing black play pawn to d6. Now, this isn't a particularly bad move. In fact, it is an opening that has a name, the Philidor defense, and played well. I do think that you can get a normal opening position as black with this line. The problem is that this move does block in the bishop on d6, which is not really ideal. And I would say that your margin of error is much smaller after a move like d6. In modern chess, a lot of times a move that might not be the best move can still work if you follow it up accurately, but you have to be much more precise when you're playing a move that is probably considered subpar. So in any case, Morphy decides that he's going to go for it. He plays pawn to d4 here, letting out his other bishop and contesting the center by attacking the black pawn on e5. He now has two pawns on e5. Black doesn't want to capture on d4 because after white captures back, white has two pieces developed to 0 pieces for black, and black gave up the best center pawn that black had. So after d4, the opponents respond with bishop g4, pinning the knight right here, and this turns out to be a bit of a mistake. So after bishop g4, the problem is that white can capture on e5, which Morphy does. And if black captures back with the pawn, white can trade the queens here and then win this pawn on e5, coming out with an extra pawn. No bueno. So the amateur players do spot this problem, and after Morphy does make the correct capture on e5, they decide to capture on f3. By eliminating the knight, they avoid the problem where if, for example, white did this, when they capture back, the pawn is no longer under attack because there's no knight on f3 to take the pawn. The thing is, white is going to recapture with the queen, which both keeps a healthy pawn structure better than capturing with the pawn, and the queen now comes into the action, and it turns out that that's really, really strong. Of course, at this point, black is going to recapture the pawn, and now Morphy has a good move, developing with another threat. If you're not familiar with the threat that Morphy is making, you really should pause the video and try to think about what the threat is. Morphy's threatening just to take this pawn with both the bishop and the queen, particularly the queen, because if the queen takes the pawn, it is checkmate. Black responds by developing a piece and blocking the queen's attack on f7. This seems like a good move, but now Morphy has another very strong move. I would pause your video at this point and try to figure out what Morphy played in this position. So Morphy finds the excellent move queen b3. That is a double attack. The queen and bishop line up and hit f7 and b7. And the queen and bishop lineup here is actually called a battery. When you put two pieces on the same line to attack one target, you have a battery. So they have a battery here against f7, which is only defended by the queen. After queen b3, black plays a good move, I think, queen to e7. So the main point that black has is that queen e7 intends, after queen takes b7, to go queen b4 check. Both the king and the queen will be under attack. White will have to trade queens, taking the queen on b4, bishop takes b4, and then after, for example, pawn to c3, white has won a pawn, which is great, but winning an endgame is not so fun. The queens are off the board and black is no longer in danger of losing out of the gate. Morphy rejects this, although it's very good, and decides that he's going to keep the queens on and try to attack. There was an alternative, though, and it's important to point this out. We always want to spot the best options available. The best option was bishop takes f7 check, and after the queen takes back, of course the king can't take and step into check, we can take up here, and this traps the rook on a8. So that wins a lot of material. That is a very strong continuation. Morphy may or may not have seen that. I'm not sure. Sometimes when a strong player is playing some amateur players and they feel like they're winning, they don't really look for these kind of continuations. But this also wouldn't have been the most exciting game. In the game, Morphy just decided to develop a knight to c3 instead of either taking on b7 right away or after taking on f7. He brings out a new piece in the game and says, well, I would like to keep the queens on the board and try to keep attacking, which is really fun. It's going to turn out very, very well for him. So black plays pawn c6, which is a clever move. That allows the black queen to defend this pawn so that white can no longer capture. And c6 is nice because it controls these squares, so the white knight can't hop into those squares. So this seems like a really good defensive try from black. Morphy develops his last minor piece. Now all the pieces he has on the board, the minor pieces, the bishops and the knights, are on good attacking squares, and this knight is pinned. It cannot move. Great move. Black tries pawn to b5, and this proves to be a big mistake. Of course, it's hard to suggest a good move for black in any case, so this might as well be tried as much as anything, I guess. And in fact, now Morphy has to play a little bit brilliantly to punish this move. If he just stepped back with his bishop, then he would lose a lot of his advantage, maybe all of his advantage. Black can bring the knight out, and black is starting to develop. The fact that the bishop has stepped back is really a loss for white, and these pawns seem pretty good and solid. All in all, especially when you consider that black's knight is about to hop into this square right here and attack the queen and bishop, black's doing pretty great. So instead, after pawn to b5, Morphy decides, I'm so far ahead in development and black is so far away from castling right here that I need to go for it right now. And he's absolutely right. He plays knight takes b5. So this is going to give up a knight for 2 pawns, and black does choose to take the knight. There's no better option because otherwise you're losing material and you're still coming under an attack, and the bishop captures back. So white got 2 pawns, but black won the knight. The problem is that the king here is really, really exposed, and in fact, this is just a crushing attack for white. It's totally winning. Let's see why. So black tries to block and develop. That makes the most sense in this position. The knight on b8 comes off its starting square and blocks the check, but now both knights are pinned, right? Neither knight can move. The knight on f6 cannot move because the bishop on g5 would take the queen, and the knight on d7 can't move because it's illegal. It would put the king in check. After knight d7, this is a good point to pause the video and figure out what you would play if you were playing the white pieces. As a beginner, I think this is an excellent puzzle to solve. So the correct move and the move Morphy plays is castles, which both gets the rook into the action and gets the king out of the way. One thing that I often see in games with young students that I have is that they forget to get the rooks into the game and they forget to castle, which gets the king out of the way so both rooks can start to participate in the attack. This is a great example here of a nice strong castling maneuver that gets the rook right into the action, and you'll see that it allows white to finish off the game very, very quick. Don't forget to castle. Don't forget to get your rooks into the game. So at this point, white is already threatening to win material because if, for example, the bishop captures here, black has no good way to recapture. Can't take with the queen because you'll just get captured by the rook. You can't take with the knight because your queen will be hanging to this bishop. Your king can't take because it would be check. So black must bring this rook over to defend the knight. That's really the only option. At this point, Morphy is close to finishing things off, and many moves would win at this point. Black is so tied up, and I would point out this bishop and rook are so out of the game that, again, you can do many things. You can play this slowly, but there is one best way to continue. How can you get white's last piece into the attack? Pause your video if you need time to think about this. So what Morphy does, fantastic move, is he plays rook takes d7 here. This allows, after black's recapture, the other rook to come into the game. Of course, black had to recapture, and of course, this rook is ready to come into the game and again pile up on this piece. White is threatening to capture because, again, black does not have any good defenders. This knight is still pinned, and the queen and king do not want to capture on d7 if white captures, because that would be a loss of material. Or in the case of the king capturing, it would be walking into check. So after rook d1, black doesn't have a lot of choices. I like what black tries. Black tries to move queen to e6 here. That does unpin the knight. So now the knight can defend the rook on d7, which is a good idea. And of course, black is offering a trade of queens. Also a really good idea. When you're under attack, you really want to trade queens. If the queens come off, you're so much safer. If the queens disappeared from the board here for black, then black actually could be winning. Black is up a lot of material. We sacrificed the knight on b5. We sacrificed an exchange on d7. So trading queens is a huge idea for black. And if white does not respond well, then black could actually turn the game around. Of course, Morphy's not going to let that happen. That's not going to happen in this case. Morphy has a winning continuation, and he finds it. Bishop takes d7 check is correct. It forces the next move. Knight takes d7. If you capture with the queen, you just lose the queen. And now this is a good moment to pause your video and try to find what Morphy played in this position to end the game. Morphy found queen to b8 check. This is a brilliant queen sacrifice that leaves black with only one legal move. Knight takes d7, but that clears the d file for the rook. The rook comes to d8, delivering checkmate. This game and checkmate is so famous that the checkmate we see here with the rook and the bishop kind of serving as a seatbelt, holding the black king in place, is actually known as the Morphy mate because of this game. This game is widely loved because of the aggressive nature of white's play, because you see white demonstrating such excellent control of the center and development, the importance of creating threats with every move that you make, the importance of playing with energy to attack an opponent's king that's in the middle. There are so many lessons you can take from this game. Hopefully you like this video. If you do, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. I plan to do a bunch more videos like this, and also leave some feedback in the comments, as this is the first video we're trying like this, and I'd love to know what you think. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again in a future video.